The Volkswagen ID.7, it's a really important car for Volkswagen. The Golf turned 50 just a few days ago. And I'm not saying it's as important for the future of the company, but it kind of is. Because the ID.7 is coming in the back of the ID.3, 4, 5, which hasn't had the best start in life. There's been delays, software issues, further software issues, and VW, certainly at the start of its life, had semiconductor problems, battery shortages, and they were relying on people all over the planet who were producing batteries to give them batteries for their car. Time has moved on quite a bit since then. I've even visited their new battery plant in Germany to see how much in-house production they can achieve, cutting out the middle person, because that can just cause too many problems. It's not a small car, it's 39 millimeters short of 5 meters long, which does give you a lot of pluses on the inside. A huge boot, loads of rear legroom. In fact, it is on a par with a Skoda Superb. In fact, possibly a little bit better. This week, I have done over 1,000 kilometers in this ID.7 without any issues whatsoever. And I will cover it all on this massively in-depth detail of the VW ID.7. Welcome to Nobby on Cars. It's got a very similar nose to what we've come to expect from the brand. Down here is a little bit different to what we've seen before. This is obviously a line that's accentuated by this white colour. There's no frunk under here, but as I say, they have kind of made up for it in the rear with extra boot space. 19-inch wheels come as standard. These are 20s, they're an upgrade. There's enough alloy protection from these Bridgestone tyres, which you're going to want because there's a lot of diamond and black polish going on in these wheels. They look great, but they do get quite dirty fairly quickly. You can also say the same for the black side skirt that goes along the side of the car. It looks great when it's clean, you've just freshly washed it, but a little bit of rain and that gets very, very dirty. So the white not so bad, but the black textures on the car, a little bit of a problem. Love the roof line. There's kind of a brushed silver going across. You've got a bit of black for the contrasting roof, which this has a panoramic glass roof. And then the black housing of the mirrors, it looks generally okay. My question, and it's remained since the first time I saw this car over a year ago in the flesh, is the overhang of the rear quarter can look a little bit strange, depending on colour especially. This huge light bar once you have the headlights on during the day, and obviously at night time, is great, very bright, looks nice. Some might think it's just a bit too much. Further reflector strip down the bottom, and the black is broken up with the white texture. If this is a darker car, you don't necessarily see that. 532 litre boot. Perhaps if I was to criticise it, it would benefit from a boot spoiler. I think it would look quite nice. It is electrically operating. Lots of different variables in here. Biggest challenge is this parcel shelf. It's not flexible. Now, if you lift the storage part of the boot, you can slide that under, but then you've got nowhere to put your charging cables. So that's worth considering. Easy access to drop the rear seats. That gives you plenty of space. There is an armrest the other side of the backrest, and then you have access to with the ski hatch as well. So a lot of practical stuff going on. It feels that saloons just don't sell as well as they used to anymore. But when you look at a fastback or a liftback, maybe the answer is in these kind of cars, because the way the boot opens gives you so much flexibility. If this was a saloon, you can't get a dog in, you can't get kids' bikes in. It's just too restrictive in the design. However, this design of car is more aerodynamic, and with this liftback option, you just get a wonderfully usable boot, and I take it over an SUV any day of the week. First thing I noticed as soon as I sat into this car, the first time I saw its face, I just noticed straight away, whoa, the legroom is fantastic in the back of this. And look, that remains to be the case. You've got so much space for knees. There's good support in the back of your thighs. If you've only got two passengers back here, then you've got an armrest, which is at a decent angle. Little gizmos like the tablet holder that you get in a Skoda Superb, missing from the ID.7, which is a bit of a shame. You got seat pockets in the back here. You get this glass roof that can be frosted at the touch of a button. If you're sitting really kind of far back and you're quite tall, it might just start to cause issues, but you could probably get yourself a few more inches by sitting properly in the seat at all times. Ambient lighting throughout the cabin is good. You don't see the colour of the car, the metal through the pillars. They're all tucked away behind plastic, so that feels quite premium. Climate control and 2 USB-Cs for your passengers. And looking around the interior of this car, it is the interior the ID3 and 4 and 5 should have had from the get-go. And it's like Volkswagen have caught up when it comes to the interior quality of the ID.7. Hopefully it's not too little too late. As soon as you get into the seat, you don't have to press the ignition button, but you can. It will guide you back to wherever your saved preset has been. As I mentioned, I've done over 1,000 kilometers in this car. That has meant a lot of charging. Charging curve right up to 60% is going to give you well above 140 kilowatt. That was without battery conditioning, which finally the ID.7 has. The higher battery capacity, which is just over 90, will give you almost 200 kilowatt charging. This one is a little bit reduced on that. But to be honest, that was perfect for me. It got in about 18 minutes or less 100 kilometers at that temperature. And that's where the variables change with electric cars. Today it's 11 degrees. The other day I was driving it was 4 degrees. And that's had a fairly significant impact on energy consumption. I'll get to that in the drive. But battery conditioning is very welcome in this style of car. The heat pump isn't standard. It is spec'd on this car. I haven't seen any huge benefits from it, but again, it hasn't been freezing, and I don't know if a heat pump is really something you need in Ireland. Certainly it's over £1,000 as an optional extra, so that is expensive for maybe the use that you're not going to get from it. You could just precondition the car, use the app to do it, and just use it that way. I don't know if you actually need to get a heat pump, but it should be standard in this size of car. It's quite minimalistic in here. The screen is 15 inches, it's huge. It has the new software on it, so forget everything you know already about the ID3, 4 and 5. It's not totally different, but it works. There's no bugs, there's no errors. I haven't had any drive in the centre of the road. I haven't had wireless charging issues. I've had no issues in over 1,000 kilometers with this car. You've got static air conditioning, wireless charging, good camera, change the background lighting, there's 30 different colours. You've constantly got a shortcut option for the climate control down here, air cooled and heated seats, illuminated light bar, and then these open to give you all the space you want for cup holders, wireless charging, keep things out of sight, out of mind. A little bit of extra space down here. These are things you couldn't do with internal combustion engine cars because you'd have a transmission tunnel down here. And then under here you get more space. But again, it's lacking any of the Simply Clever stuff that you'll get in its cousin, Skoda. The haptic buttons have remained in this car. Volkswagen have said they are going to bring them back. And the gear controller is now up here. You will get that in the Skoda Superb and Kodiaq. And the wiper stalk is here alongside your indicators. You also have this smaller screen, which could be a little bit bigger, but it does everything you need it to do. Head-up display in this car, which is very useful. This car also has travel assist. It'll stop and speed up with speed signs and cars, and in stop-start traffic, it will do all the moving for you. There has been the odd occasion where it's misreading road signs and motorways. You're doing 120, suddenly you think you're in an 80 zone, hammers the brakes. Thankfully nobody behind me, but that has happened once or twice. And I don't know if that's a mapping issue or a road sign issue in Ireland more than the car. Jury's out on that one. If you know, comment down below. These have massaging seats. They're very nice. I don't think you'd use it for 20 minutes, but use it for a while. Extenders for the back of your legs. And yeah, my only criticism, and it's small, it is quite minimalistic, but the interior quality of everything is really great. You can control how many air vents are open around the car, again, to just save use of energy using climate control. This is the frost option. When I first tested this car, I had someone from Volkswagen in the car with me driving. They're like, make sure you do not show that that frosted option. They were very, very secretive about it. That's what it does. Overall, it's good. No issues on this software. None. Nada. Despite the 20-inch alloys, it's quite forgiving over the bumps, the lumps, and the speed ramps. This is 286 brake horsepower, which is, you know, that's a jump and enough for this size of car. Rear wheel drive, all the safety aids you'd want, including blind spot and rear cross traffic monitoring. And yes, like a multitude of new cars on the market today, you'll get speed side warnings. You can turn it off every time you get into the car, but the driver monitoring system, once you've turned that off once, it stays off. That is nearly a reason alone for you to buy this car over other cars on the market, because most of them have to be turned off every single journey. Even if you just got out to get milk, it doesn't care. Put the boot down, you get a nice little shove into the back. There's plenty of overtaking torque. As I said, I've driven this car across Ireland, east to west. Did another journey from Dublin to Longford. Had to overtake on motorways there. The car just got on with it. Temperature wise, I've been driving it somewhere between 3 degrees Celsius and 12 degrees Celsius. Why is that relevant, you might ask? Well, because EV battery temperatures, they can be a little bit of a sensitive soul, and depending on temperature, you'll get better range out of the car. Generally, I've been achieving sort of 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but today, driving to where I've been filming, weather's a little bit better, I was getting around 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and we are still at the very tail end of March. You will get better figures. This is meant to be a close on 600 kilometer car. Don't know if it ever will be that, but there you go. In fact, I forgot to turn off the speed sign. That's the first time it's come on. I've obviously been paying attention and driving responsibly, but that's it. You turn that off, a couple of clicks, that's it, it's done. Now you will have to reset that every journey. Tire noise, not too bad. Forgiving suspension, DCC on it, so you can tailor the different modes, put into sport if you want. I haven't bothered. Or eco for that matter, I haven't bothered. I just left it in normal mode and it's done just fine. The steering, it's sharp enough. There's 2.2 ton of weight going on this car. So when I say sharp enough, yeah, you know what I mean. It's a great cruiser though. That is where it really comes into its own. You get in, you go on a long journey, and you just relax. You know, you have these massaging seats, the air-cooled seats if you wish. It all provides a very pleasant experience for the driver and the passengers. There's no gimmicks like games and stuff to play with while you're charging. Perhaps over-the-air updates will change that down the road. But hopefully you can see by how little the camera is even moving as I'm driving this car, how well the suspension copes with the road. So smooth drive, lots of safety aids, comfortable, good visibility, nice supportive seats. It's really set up for that kind of stuff. And if you're going to spend a lot of time in the car, even with these 20-inch alloy wheels, it's still a very comfortable place to be behind the wheel of. Just quickly changing that drive mode then, put it into sport. There's a little bit more response from the throttle, but to be honest with you, it always feels quick enough. The steering, maybe a little bit sharper. I think a lot of this stuff is placebo carry-on, if I'm honest. The great option is being able to go into individual, tailor it to where you want, change the DCC down to below even where comfort is, and it's really good. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know from the characteristics of this car that it weighs just under 2.2 ton. Do of course hang on till the very end of this video to catch my overall summary of it. But it's a cracking car, price aside. It just is a shame it took VW so long to get it right and so long to get this car out on the market, because we could have done with it 2 years ago. I just don't think they would have been able to produce this car 2 years ago. They were still getting their heads around batteries and software. But all seems to be forgiven, and I say that having covered a huge amount of distance in this car this week. I get the looks are a little bit subjective, the price might stick in you. You know, what about 50? What about somewhere around the BYD seal price mark? Because that is a lot of car for the money, and you could argue that one of the other reasons you'd buy this over the seal is you just like the VW badge that bit more. You don't want to explain to somebody your car is a what? A seal. BYD. What? You know, it has an awful lot going for it. But if you really have your heart set on the more traditional brands, this is one of the best that you can buy right now. ID.7 from VW, lots to like, lots to question. Why did it take so long? As I said, I drove this car a little over a year ago in Marseille or Malaga or Alicante. That's where it was. And meanwhile, people like Tesla have been allowed to plough along, and they're definitely playing catch up price-wise, starting from €56,000 in Ireland. It's not a cheap car. It delivers very well on what an electric car should do. It's reasonably efficient. Obviously, I'm not even filming this in summertime. I'd love to see how it compares, for example, to the Hyundai Ioniq 6, which was doing like 12 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, even on a motorway. When you compare it to cars like the BYD Seal, it could do a little better when it comes to vehicle to load, vehicle to grid, heat pump. It should have slightly faster charging. It should probably cost a little bit less than it does. Remember, the €6,000, actually almost €7,000 worth of extras on this car, bringing it into the 60s, taking the grant away for as long as that continues. It should probably have a frunk. Despite all that, the fact that I was able to cover over 1,000 kilometers in this car without a single issue, even when it came to charging, which you're always dependent on the public network for that, I just got lucky in some ways. I didn't even have to wait, but I managed to drive this car from Lahinch to Dublin Port with 60-odd%, and I got to Dublin Port with 1%. I drove the motorway, it was 4 degrees. Yes, I did at times turn the climate control off, but it did it. And it shows you how far technology is changing all the time when it comes to these EVs, because that wouldn't have always been possible, and certainly not in a VW perhaps. If I was in the market for an EV that could do all the things that I needed to do, kids, dog, bikes, all those things, I would have to consider it just because I like it. It's as simple as that. I like it. It's comfortable. It has enough tech to keep me happy. Yeah, it would be nice to have the things like vehicle to load on it, and certainly vehicle to grid to future-proof it a little bit. Should it have a slightly bigger battery for the price and the style of car? Perhaps. Obviously you can get that if you wish, but you're going to push it into expensive territory. When this car was first rumoured for prices over a year ago, people thought this is going to be 70-something grand cars. Like, who's going to buy it? Thankfully, it hasn't worked out that way. It still doesn't make it cheap at €56,000. But now I've had more time with the ID.7, I have to say, I really like it. Let me know what you think of this new car from VW in the comments down below. You might consider sharing this video or liking it or posting it somewhere that someone else could see it. It all helps on this independent YouTube channel of mine and yours, because it's meant to be a community after all. So, ID.7, report card would say really excellent, could be slightly better. I think that's a fair summary. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.